We are a body like Bruce, and today we are bringing you a video on this book titled A Striking Distance, Bruce Lee and the Dawn of Martial Arts in America by Charles Russo. I'm going to go through it briefly. On the inside sleeve, or the inside jacket, in the spring of 1959, 18-year-old Bruce Lee returned to San Francisco, the city of his birth, and quickly inserted himself into the West Coast fledgling martial arts culture. Even though Asian fighting styles were widely unknown to mainstream America, Bruce encountered a robust fight culture in a San Francisco Bay Area that was populated with talented and trailblazing practitioners such as Lau Bun, or Lau Bun, Chinatown's aging kung fu patriarch, Wally Jay, the innovative Hawaiian jujitsu master, and James Lee, the no-nonsense Oakland street fighter. Regarded by some as a brash loudmouth and by others as a dynamic visionary, Bruce spent his first few years back in America advocating for a more modern approach to the martial arts and showing little regard for the damaged egos left in his wake. On the Chinese calendar, 1964 was the year of the Green Dragon. It would be a challenging and eventful year for Bruce. He would broadcast his dissenting view before the first great international martial arts gathering and then defend it by facing down Chinatown's young ace kung fu practitioner in a legendary behind closed doors high noon showdown. The year of the Green Dragon saw the dawn of martial arts in America and the rise of an icon. Drawing on more than 100 original interviews and an eclectic array of sources, Striking Distance is an engrossing narrative that chronicles San Francisco Bay's pioneering martial arts scene that thrived in early 1960s and offers an in-depth look at a widely unknown chapter of Bruce Lee's iconic life. We're going to zip to the back to see if there's any more information on the back jacket sleeve pocket. Okay, it's a little about Charles Russo, who's an award-winning journalist who lives in San Francisco. We lived in San Francisco. There's very little information on him there. You can look him up online, perhaps Wikipedia, if you need to find more information on this particular writer or author. So this is Striking Distance, Bruce Lee and the Dawn of Martial Arts in America by Charles Russo. And dedicates it to Angelo and Sal, as Grandpa Charlie told him, keep punching. Contents page. And here's a quote by Sun Tzu, The Art of War, in the book The Art of War. Do not repeat the tactics which have gained you one victory, but let your methods be regulated by the infinite variety of circumstances. Contents page. We found that there's not much pictures in this book. Here's a prologue, The Dissident. Alameda, California, 1964. Wally Jay, this is one of Bruce Lee's students, later students, spent the past few days cooking 4 whole pigs in the narrow confines of his backyard. A native-born Hawaiian with a bright disposition and vertical build, Wally knew how to construct a proper emu. Even if the islander earth oven was poorly suited for mainland suburbia. Here in our country there are Samoans, Tongans, etc. who do the same. That's why we know about and how to say this word, emu, or umu, because our people supposedly came from Hawaii, Hawaii, etc. A native-born Hawaiian with a bright disposition and vertical build, Wally knew how to construct a proper emu, even if the islander earth oven was poorly suited for mainland suburbia. It's beautiful, the food is beautiful. Following his usual routine, he dug the pit, stacked the firewood, arranged the rocks, and spread the banana leaves. So if you get a chance to, your Samoan friends or their relations have an umu, don't say no, it's beautiful, it's lovely. The barbecue's fire ascended high over his backyard fence, quickly igniting a flurry of 911 calls on rotary dials. And like clockwork, the Alameda Fire Department sent an engine over just as the rich aroma began to pervade Eagle Avenue. The inspection, however, was little more than a formality. Wally had been hosting his giant luau parties twice a week for almost a decade now, and the firemen from nearby Station 3 had long since become accustomed to the massive Hawaiian barbecue that preceded the event. I wonder if they actually had a feed while they were there. Fire Chief William Hillbush had even become chummy with Wally over the years, noticing that the jujitsu master seemed to exude nothing but humility and good manners. For someone with a reputation for tossing grown men about like ragdolls on the mat, Wally appeared to be a gentle soul. Besides, Hillbush's guys were always fascinated to see the island-style earth oven blazing away in a neighbourhood yard. "All right, Wally, we'll see you in 6 months," Hillbush said, as he departed alongside the training studio at the rear of the house. "Enjoy your luau." Okay, so that's about Wally Jay, his history. And that talks about his buddy James Lee, who had arranged for a special martial arts guest to come down from Seattle to perform, and that prospect was shaping up to be every bit as exciting as hearing Machado sing. Over the last few years, the martial arts demonstrations have become a big part of the luau entertainment, and this friend of theirs from Seattle, well, Wally knew the kid to be a showstopper. Leo Fong, I guess he became one of Bruce Lee's students later on, drove south from Vallejo along 1-80 in his metallic green Ford, etc., etc. And merging onto 24 toward Oakland, Fong thought of how his parish, I think he was a minister for a church, reassignment from Sacramento to Vallejo had cut down so heavily on his commute times, just as his departure from Chinatown to study with James Lee in the East Bay kept him from suffering Bay Bridge traffic. Fong had been travelling to San Francisco for kung fu lessons for the past few years, first at Hong Sing off of Portsmouth Square, and then at Kin Mon up on Waverly. In those days he was making the weekly trip to practice in James's garage out towards the Oakland foothills. Unlike most practitioners of the time, Fong did not derive his martial arts identity from any one particular school or method. Even as his foundation was in American boxing, Fong had studied jujitsu, taekwondo and a variety of kung fu styles since moving to California. Still, he felt inclined to keep looking and experimenting, to continue chasing down some sort of ultimate fighting style. It was in this regard that he had found a like-minded mentor in James Lee, who was almost 10 years his senior, but one of the more forward-thinking martial artists he had met. Not only did James share Fong's interest in various styles, but he was always proactive on the lookout for techniques that could prove effective in a street fight. Whereas Fong grew up beating back the racism of corn-fed Ozark boys, James had made a name for himself fighting on the blue-collar streets of Oakland, California. Different worlds, sure, but they both understood the stark and spontaneous nature of real fighting. Fong's schedule limited him only to a weekly practice session in Oakland, but the second he arrived, James would excitedly convey something new that he had come across that week. Like Fong, James didn't have firm allegiance to a particular style or system, but rather always put the emphasis on effectiveness, asking, does it work? The new techniques he related were always something viable, something that could prove worthwhile in a street fight, a streamlined type of kick or a viciously effective chokehold. It was one of those zealous reports from James that now had Fong on the road to Oakland for Wally Jay's luau, though to check out not a fighting technique but an individual fighter. Fong was somewhat indifferent to the invitation at first, but he was won over by James's enthusiastic descriptions of the guys slated to perform at the luau, some 20-year-old martial arts dynamo from Seattle, some kid named Bruce, and so forth. And it mentions Elvis Presley here. Castro, Ed Parker, etc. had, well, Ed Parker was the teacher of Elvis Presley. At the luau he answered the customary questions about how Elvis Presley's training was going. Maybe that's when he's talking to Ed Parker. The kid is tough, but was far more excited to talk about his upcoming international martial arts conference later that summer. That'd be Ed Parker then. Parker explained that he had secured a venue in Long Beach, part showcase, part competition. He said that he was hoping to draw heavy attendance from martial artists around the world. Liu Fong arrived shortly after in the green fare lane, and James Lee invited him to sit with everyone at his table. As a once-a-week student, Fong didn't know many of James's other guys too well. He did recognise Al Novak. I wonder if he's the father of Kim Novak, the beautiful actress. Maybe she was on Planet of the Apes, the original with Charlton Heston. She was the one that she's actually nice to him, right? Charlton Heston's character, Taylor, or whatever his name was. Yeah. Maybe. Not too sure if he was the husband or the father of that particular lady. Fong did recognise Al Novak, though, a 260-pound World War II veteran who had raided Normandy on D-Day. Novak was a muscled beast of a fighter. Even the old Chinatown guys, highly dismissive of the idea of Caucasian martial arts, had to concede Novak's prowess. James had first met Al at a previous luau a few years back. The two quickly struck up a friendship and had been training together ever since. Fully aware that martial arts could have vast appeal for a wide audience in America, James eventually ran on an action photo of Novak, a non-Asian, on the cover of a later edition of his first book. As the island revelry continued in Colombo Hall, James lit a cigarette and was approached by another guest inquiring why he wasn't up on stage. James laughed the question off. "Just wait and watch the kid about to perform," he explained with a boozy smile. "It will certainly be something to see." Bruce Lee ignored the stares and just leapt onto centre stage. Without pause, he began to perform a martial arts form, a rehearsed movement representing specific techniques of a particular fighting style. At 5'7" and barely 140 pounds, the young out-of-towner was hardly an imposing figure up on stage. Yet the fluidity of his form, along with the zip and pop of his movements, implied something worthwhile, even potentially formidable. The crowd watched politely, thinking that the young martial artist showed promise in his earnestness. Liu Fong, on the other hand, watched in complete bewilderment. James Lee was suspect of any martial artist that put too much emphasis on forms, and Fong couldn't believe he had hyped up a guy that was only adept in rehearsed movements. Fighting, as they both agreed, was wildly unpredictable, with little room for dance-like choreography. The constant practice of forms was a key part of where modern martial arts was going astray, they reasoned, producing locker room black belts with no sense for or experience in a real street fight. But then, as if he could hear Fong's thoughts, Bruce stopped his movements, turned to the crowd in a tone that was at once cocksure and condescending, challenged the audience with a simple and defiant question. "How could you expect to fight like that?" By the time he had agreed to perform at Wally Jay's luau, Bruce Lee had been giving martial arts demonstrations in America for close to 5 years. But by 1964 they had taken a far more pointed tone. Whereas he had once demonstrated to merely bring awareness to the obscure Chinese art of Kung Fu, Bruce now had the specific agenda of advocating for a modern and more effective approach to the martial arts, and he pushed toward this with little regard for the damaged egos that would be left in his wake. As a result, Bruce's reputation was highly polarised. His friends and colleagues found him to be an inspiring and infectious and endless energetic individual who kept them thinking and laughing. They marvelled at his dynamic martial arts ability and gravitated to the logic and practicality of his viewpoint. For many others, though, he came across as brash and egotistical, an overbearing show-off and a tiresome self-promoter. Across the bay in San Francisco's Chinatown, the martial arts community regarded him as a trash-talking troublemaker, with one neighbourhood kung fu master dismissing him as little more than a dissident with bad manners. When it came to the martial arts in America during the early 1960s, the San Francisco Bay Area was the place to be, having benefited from the talent and influence of a diverse array of practitioners who had migrated from southern China, Hong Kong, Japan and Hawaii. As Al Tracy, a local Kempo teacher and colleague of Ed Parker at the time, would characterise it, the real significant early development of the martial arts in the United States was heavily based in the Bay Area. Many of the most important people came out of the Bay Area, not just for the Chinese but for so much of the martial arts. By the spring of 1964, Bruce Lee had been making regular trips from Seattle to Oakland for the better part of 2 years to collaborate with James Lee and his colleagues. There in the East Bay, Bruce had found them to be a talented group of older and well-seasoned practitioners who were inclined toward innovation. They embraced him as an equal and indulged his around-the-clock fanaticism for the fighting arts. In just a couple of months' time, Bruce would fully relocate to Oakland, California, to further immerse himself in this unique martial arts laboratory. On the Chinese calendar, 1964 was the year of the Green Dragon. It would be a hard and eventful year for 23-year-old Bruce Lee. He would drop out of college and stare at his career with uncertainty. He would marry against the protest of his bride's family and quickly learned that his first child was on the way. He would travel to Ed Parker's showcase in Long Beach and defiantly broadcast his dissenting viewpoint to an international audience of martial arts practitioners. And before the year's conclusion, he would face Chinatown's Kung Fu ace in a behind-closed-doors high-noon showdown. Standing on that stage in Oakland, Bruce Lee could have likely never imagined that he was also less than a year away from his first foray into American show business, in which he would travel to Hollywood and audition with the 20th Century Fox for a role in Charlie Chan's Number One Son and be cast instead as Kato on the Green Hornet. Furthermore, his big challenge match in the months ahead would provide the spark for his greatest evolution as a fighter and cause him to begin tangibly constructing the new martial arts paradigm that he was already beginning to envision. In this regard, 1964 was a pivotal moment for him. The year of the Green Dragon would shape his life in profound and long-lasting ways. Bruce Lee's demonstration at Wally Jay's Luau quickly revealed itself to be actually more of a stern lecture, and Liu Fong was now puzzled for a whole new set of reasons. "There is no way a person is going to fight you in the street with a set pattern," Bruce declared from the stage, referring to the choreography of his initial form. Stepping back towards centre stage, he then worked his way through a northern Shaolin fighting form. Bruce was impressive in this rendering as well, launching wide kicks that arched up over his head. Again, though, he was quick with his critique. "Classical methods like these are a form of paralysis," he declared. "Too many practitioners are just blindly rehearsing these systematic routines and stunts." A disjointed atmosphere spread through the crowd. Much like Fong, the spectators were caught off guard. Martial arts demonstrations were typically lively affairs with a lot of dynamic ability and maybe a bit of light humour. Instead, the martial artists within the Liao crowd were being subjected to a young practitioner dressing them down. He was challenging the worth of what many of the established masters were teaching, and doing so by emulating their styles and then refuting them. Fong wasn't surprised when his quick scan of the crowd around him revealed a fair share of red faces and tense expressions. Martial artists, like so many of the Asian cultures they sprang from, were not receptive to boasts or put-downs, particularly from younger quarters, and Bruce was dealing heavily in each regard. After concluding his performance and dismissal of other fighting styles, Bruce began to explain the dynamics of the style he taught at his school in Seattle. Here, he explained, the emphasis was on streamlining everything to a tangible effectiveness, economy of movement or motion, and direct attacks. The focus was on speed and power. No acrobatics, no fancy forms, no excess, the most results with the least effort. With his peculiar English accent, he began to increasingly punctuate his descriptions with quick bursts of punches and advances. "The techniques are smooth, short, and extremely fast," he said, before letting loose a flurry of fast blasts. "They are direct, to the point, and are stripped down to the essential purpose without any wasted motions." Bruce explained that he liked to think of his approach as scientific street fighting. His acquaintances in the crowd, Castro, Parker, Novak, knew that he was selling his own brand of the Wing Chun style of Kung Fu. Finally, he gave a demonstration. Note this: calling up a sizable male volunteer from the front of the stage, a big football linebacker type, possibly Vic Moore. By Fong's perspective, Bruce challenged him to block his punch. He explained to the crowd how he would close the gap between them from a wide distance and successfully strike his opponent with a tag on the forehead. The entire move was explained. The volunteer and the crowd knew Bruce's objective. He asked if the volunteer was ready, and then in a tidy blur he was across the stage to tap his opponent an instant ahead of his block. The crowd remembered. Bruce's speed was stunning. Now let's do it again. They reset. Ready? Again, Bruce moved with blinding speed, like a fencer going for the final point. His opponent tried to compensate with an early move, and Bruce reassessed in microseconds, waiting for his block to pass before he tagged him again. Same spot. So if you look at that footage of Vic Moore, he threw this block, but Bruce Lee waited until it passed by, and then he tapped him. Yeah. Bruce left the stage to mix the applause, so Vic Moore, if this is him, tried to compensate with an early move, and Bruce reassessed in microseconds, waiting for his block to pass before he tagged him again, same spot. So he threw a punch or a block. Bruce saw it coming within seconds of him throwing it, and waited for it to pass before he tagged the guy on the head in the same spot. So yeah, he never blocked it. Vic Moore never blocked it. Blocked Bruce Lee's advance, or his back fist, or whatever he did at him. Bruce Lee left the stage to mixed applause. Fong took stock. Despite Lee's blazing display of speed, much of the crowd was unimpressed. Bruce's attitude was contrary to the etiquette of both martial arts artists and Chinese custom, an immediate deal breaker for many in attendance. James Lee, on the other hand, didn't appear fazed in the least, and spent his time after the demonstration gleefully inviting his inner circle over to his house on Monday for a meeting with Bruce. Fong wasn't sure what to think. He got in the ring enough to know when someone had fighting ability, and this kid had speed and coordination like few guys he had ever seen. Fong also knew where he was coming from, philosophically. Bruce was tackling the elephant in the room, putting it front and centre for everyone to consider. Do these skills and techniques really work? Or are they just a bunch of fancy routines artfully packaged in Eastern exoticism? For Fong was blunt articulation of the same issues and criticism that he had discussed with James Lee on numerous occasions. Still, Fong felt uneasy. The kid's attitude, his attitude was going to lead him to trouble. Part 1, San Francisco. The Patriarch, San Francisco, March 1959. Lau Bun quietly lit a cigarette along the top end of Portsmouth Square while his senior students conducted class in his nearby basement studio. He nodded a silent hello to his neighbours as they passed by him along Brennan Place, and although his emphysema was growing worse, he took his time finishing his smoke. At 68, Lau Bun exuded a formidable presence that belied his years. Slim with a strong warrior physique, he possessed piercing eyes under thick rimmed glasses and hardened features below short grey hair. He carried himself with reticence, his only volume amplified through the intensity of his expressions. Below him in the spacious city car park, blah blah blah. With more than 25 years of teaching Choi Li Foot, Kung Fu and line dancing within Chinatown, it was as a teacher, and really as the neighbourhood patriarch of martial arts, that Lau Bun was best known. And if his reputation in the community was notable, it was legendary among his students. They remember stories of his abilities, of their short walks home from class, of his enforcer days in the dong, or his flawless handling of the straight sword. Well, he was like Chinese syndicate mafia gang, right? Syndicate. Perhaps it was the tale of the rat that he killed with a dart at a sizable distance. In the dark were the most frequently told of them all. The incident in Los Angeles. Not that Lau Bun's school was swarming with students. The size of his classes tended to fluctuate from year to year, but always maintained about a core dozen dedicated students, even as others fell by the wayside as a result of either too many movies or Lau Bun's hardline insistence on foundational abilities. Younger students, especially interested in his weapon proficiency of the straight sword, throwing dart, chain whip and butterfly knife, quickly learned that months of horse dance training came first. Lau Bun's studio, like much of Chinatown spaces, was Spartan. He had a small burner for cooking beneath the stairs and a tiny adjacent room that was large enough to accommodate a dresser and a bed, etc., etc. In that underground space, Lau Bun was a hard-headed drill sergeant, running endless horse stance exercises and visibly impatient if he had to explain anything more than twice, but he wasn't without empathy for his students, and so forth. Standing beside them now, he sized up his class. They held their horse stances firm, legs strong but split. It was their base, their foundation for fighting. Everything stemmed from your jot-ma, your horse stance, or mabo in Chinese. Advance every punch. He insisted that they hold that pose for great lengths of time until it was solid, until it was formidable. It was a practice that wore down many newcomers, imposed on them for months, and inspiring internal questions of whether they should have used their lunch money at the school cafeteria instead. Others just couldn't endure the monotony of the training, having joined expecting a fast track toward the mastery of the straight sword, or in high hope whispers at least, the 10,000 elephants form. Lau Bun continued to inspect the students as they held strong in their school clothes. Not bad. Then he settled down on a newer student spread too wide. Lau Bun stood close and looked him over again and pushed through him till he tumbled to the tile floor. A weak foundation wasn't much of anything at all. And it goes on about the history of Chinatown. And about the Chinese arriving in San Francisco. And Chorley Foot, which combines elements and techniques of 3 different southern styles of Kung Fu to form a unique combat approach. Angular stances and extended postures, unleashing a barrage of roundhouse punches and elongated uppercuts in a variety of directions, earning the style a reputation for keen effectiveness in fighting against multiple opponents. By 1850, Chorley Foot had drawn a big following among the peasant class, with students of Hung branching out around southern China and forming a network of schools that garnered heavy enrollment. In time, these branches began taking on their own distinctive personalities and unique interpretations of the style. And he goes on more about Lau Bun, and then it starts to talk about the Dong, or the Chinese syndicate. The Dongs were modelled after the secret societies, underground rebellious groups that quietly formed in Guangdong during the 19th century to foment the overthrow of Manchu rule and advocate for the return of a Chinese-led dynasty. By the 1880s, the Dongs in San Francisco had veered sharply toward organised crime, causing the up community association to add the prefix benevolent to their own title as a distinction. And it was as part of this dynamic that Chinese martial artists were first woven into the social fabric of life in the New World during the 19th century, and so forth. And it goes on about Lau Bun again, and Charlie Foot. And they were out there testing their martial art against others. So he's asking them, how did you do tonight? Did you win? That sort of thing. 2 native sons, San Francisco, May 17, 1959. Bruce Lee stood near the deck railing with a group of fellow passengers as the ocean liner finally entered San Francisco Bay, etc. So it goes into a great deal about Bruce Lee. And it talks about his childhood, his birth, his childhood. And his father and his mother. 3, the good long fist. It goes on about the history of the martial arts, etc. Throughout history, the Chinese martial arts have been known by many names. Wushu, which translates to martial methods, Kuoshu, national art, Chuanfa, Boxing method: Chinese boxing, a reference to open hand fighting styles, not Western boxing, and in more recent times as Kung Fu, meaning effort or hard work. So everything to them was Kung Fu. Even if you're like a doctor or a cook or something like that, it's all Kung Fu because it's hard work. And there's a list of different styles and so forth. So I'm going to jump to page 70. You can read the book itself in your own time, in your own pace. I'm going to have a look at the photos that this particular book has here somewhere. Okay, it's just more information on Bruce and the students that he gathered. Try to find those particular pictures. We're pretty sure it was 70, page 70. We just can't seem to find them. Go back. Ah, here we go. We passed it. Gonna go back. Have a look at those. Very interesting. Chinese Karate Kung Fu, original Silum system. Is that like small hands or? Because you remember from practicing Wing Chun, Silum Dao. Little hand form, something like that. Okay, so Chinese Karate Kung Fu, original Silum system for health and self-defense by Professor T.Y. Wong, K.H. Lee, and shows his book, T.Y. Wong's book, 1961 book, is published by James Lee, who was amongst the very first works by a Chinese master in English. James Lee's use of the Wade Gao style of pronunciation with Kung Fu rather than Kung Fu would integrate into the English lexicon. The book eventually led to a falling out between T.Y. and James due to a misunderstanding over publishing costs. Above, Tai Chi master Choi Kam Man rounded out Chinatown small group of martial arts teachers at the start of the 60s. And so forth. Master Choi could bend space and time according to one student. Master Choi came, attracting a diverse array of students to study Tai Chi with him, often filling the playground at the Chinatown YMCA on Sacramento Street. In time, this following earned Choi threats from around the neighbourhood for teaching martial arts to non-Chinese students. So here's a pre-runner to being hassled by the Chinese community for teaching non-Chinese. Modern martial arts pioneer James Yim Lee in his early 40s when he first met Bruce Lee. James Lee, an accomplished practitioner of Iron Palm, was known for his powerful breaking technique. Like his friend Alan Joe, James was heavily influenced by the early fitness culture in the East Bay as pioneered by the likes of Jack LaLanne and Ed Yarrick. Yeah, Jack LaLanne, he was the guy, there's commercials etc. for his products, but he was the guy, real old muscly guy, who pulled a boat by his teeth while swimming. Yeah, Jack LaLanne. Remember that guy. Don't know much about him, but you remember that commercial for his product he was selling. Although born in San Francisco's Chinatown, Bruce Lee gravitated to Oakland and the martial artists in James Lee's orbit, or in his circle. He opened a school in Oakland during the summer of 1964. Bruce Lee working out on a wooden dummy with Mook Jung Mukchung, and James Lee's garage in Oakland. Wally Jay Wright, pictured with Professor Henry Okazaki, must be in Japanese, upon being awarded his black belt in 1944. Wally relocated to the San Francisco Bay Area in 1950 and taught at his Island Judo Jiu-Jitsu club in Alameda for the next 60 years. Here's Ed Parker, top left, a group photo from one of Professor Henry Okazaki's advanced judo seminars at his home in Hawaii, dated February 22nd, 1948. Wally Jay is in the middle row, far right. Middle row, far right, so it's probably over here somewhere. Yeah, one of these two guys, probably this guy here. Bottom left, Ed Parker also emerged from the melting pot martial arts culture in Hawaii. After opening his first school in Southern California in 1957, Parker quickly became popular with his celebrity crowd in Hollywood, training such well-known figures as Warren Beatty, Gary Cooper, the old cowboy, right, and Elvis Presley, king of rock and roll. His annual Long Beach International tournaments were a key foundation to martial arts culture in America. Above, Bruce Lee discussing techniques with Kempo practitioners Rob Castro and Ed Parker at Castro School on Valencia Street in San Francisco around 1963. Leo Fong during his semi-pro boxing days at Hendrix College. After growing up in Arkansas, Fong eventually relocated through his church to Northern California. In time, Fong trained in Hong Sing with Lau Bun, Kim Won with T.Y. Wong, and Oakland with James and Bruce Lee. There's Ed Parker and Bruce Lee, some of the notable figures, karate, etc. Jun Rhee, back row. There's Jun Rhee there. There's Jun Rhee there in the front row. Ed Parker, where would he be? Yeah, probably. This guy looks a bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger on the Terminator. So they're a mixed bag. Europeans, Chinese, Japanese. Above, Bruce Lee performing his Closing the Gap demonstration on a volunteer during an impromptu gathering the night before the 1964 Long Beach tournament. Bruce Lee pictured with Diana Chang Chung Wen, the most beautiful creature of free China, the day of the infamous Sun Sing Theatre performance. After Bruce's fight with Wong Jack Man, a Hong Kong newspaper ran a sensational story in its celebrity gossip column, alleging that Bruce was fighting off Wong Jack Man as a overzealous suitor of Diana. That he was after her. He was taking her off. Wong Jack Man and all this sort of stuff. Okay, sketch. Bruce Lee of Oakland student, Barney Scollin, also James Lee's Monticello Avenue home. Al Novak, right at his home in Fremont, California, USA. Longtime friend Alan Joe, in 2011. He was a World War II veteran. The first Caucasian to train within the insular martial arts culture of San Francisco's Chinatown.